Now, if we want to make a cumulative frequency histogram or a polygon, the polygon has a special name, an ogive. All we really need to do is remember that we're adding up as we go. And so effectively we're getting the size of the rectangles that we had from the frequency histogram to be piled on top of each other, so that by the time we've finished, the height of the final rectangle on the right-hand side will be the total size of the sample. Now, to make the polygon, it's a little bit different from making the frequency polygon. When you're using this word cumulative, you're thinking about adding things up as you go. So when you get to the far right-hand corner of any rectangle, you've added up everything up till there. So rather than making our dots at the centre of the rectangle, as we do with a frequency histogram, when you have a cumulative frequency histogram, you have to put your points beginning at the lower left corner of the first rectangle, because that's your starting point. And then you actually go through the top right-hand corner of every rectangle, including the first one. And here is the cumulative frequency histogram, the rectangles, and polygon, the lines, for that same set of height data. So you can see here that we're adding up. We had most of the people were actually around about the 140 to 150 centimetre mark, weren't they? And you can see that that's where the biggest jump in the cumulative height comes. Whereas because all of the first columns were quite small, when you add up each column to put them on top of each other, it's growing sort of slowly. Then we have a big chunk of people who are this height, and a reasonably big chunk of people who are the next height, and it grows from there. By the time we get to the last column, we're actually up to a total sample size of all 100 people having been counted. Now have a look at the polygon, or the ogive. It doesn't start out on the outside of the columns like the frequency polygon does. The cumulative frequency polygon says cumulative means adding up. So I haven't started adding anything until I've got something to add. That's one way to remember it. You start at the lower left corner of that first box, and you go to the upper right corner of it. From there you go to the upper right corner of every box. And that makes some sense because you can take any point, let's say here, and say how many people have we counted? How many people are there that are up to 150 centimetres tall? And you could read across the graph and see how many people that would be. It looks like around about 60. So you haven't added up those 60 people till you get to the end of that column to have counted all of them, which I think makes some sense.